They made a documentary about David. For the guys that don't know who David is, he is the famous rapper from America that allegedly, with crippling information, had something with somebody that just spawned on the earth, okay? A minor, okay? And I'm not talking about Minecraft. And he therefore allegedly, so, you know, RIP to her, hope that she has a safe flight to heaven, you know what I'm saying? Can I say flight? No, okay, now I don't even know how to, like, hopefully she's in heaven, okay? Just leave it as that. I'm not good with, like, sentence. This is David, the warning signs nobody saw, philosophical analysis. Alright, cool. I'm looking for this.
24 hours in a day, but I be streaming. I don't care about a bust down, I'm stacking to the ceiling. I grind so much, I can't be a human being.
A murder that has become one of the most discussed crime cases of recent times is that
this is
of David
professional.
Anthony Burke, who went by the stage name David. David was at the peak of his career. He dropped a high-charting debut album, he had millions of social media followers, and was significantly wealthy for a man only 20 years old.
What, he was only 2 mil, only 3 mil? That's light change. What the heck, that's all he made?
However, in September of 2025, detectives discovered the body of a 14-year-old girl that had been missing for months, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, in the trunk of his Tesla, decomposed, dismembered, and abandoned. And for months, people debated on whether they believed that this innocent-looking, clean-shaven young man with a melodic voice could do the things he'd been accused of. But now that David has been arrested for murder...
Don't forget as well that no offense to anybody that is short, we love our short kings, but bro is actually like 5'4", 5'5", so he's a real cutie patootie. Like, he's equivalent to a baddie, bro. Like, dead ass, he's equivalent to a baddie, so.
And the prosecution have documented their evidence. The likelihood that this was some sort of setup has been significantly reduced. It became evidenced that David had a physical relationship.
Oh yeah, when they started pulling out flipping clips of her actually on stream with him, like a flipping, you know, on stream with him in 4K, bro, I don't know how his lawyers are gonna argue this. Like, how? I think I was watching Jayoma or something, and then he was like, oh, if I was a lawyer, I'll just say that she had an internship
With Celeste while she was still a child. And when they broke up and she allegedly threatened to expose the relationship to...
Oh, when they broke up!
Prosecution believed he took matters into his own hands to protect what he'd built. But when you add the context that he made music constantly that included themes of blood, violence, and a romance that ends in tragedy, it's caused a lot of people to suspect that this outcome was something David always
premeditated.
However, I'm not here to discuss theory and conspiracy. I'm here to clinically answer two main overarching questions. How did David's life engineer him to become someone capable of potentially murdering and dismembering a child? And if he did, then what mental mechanisms allowed him to carry on after the fact, knowing the body of the girl he was once intimate with was decomposing in his car? It's easy to just label him as pure evil and move on, but as a student of psychology, I find it crucial that we understand what happened to him in childhood, what were the warning signs, and figure out the why.
The warning signs of when he started painting his nails, I knew there was something wrong with him. I knew, no offense to anybody painting their nails. What you saying, King? What you saying, Lost? But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I like guys that paint their nails, red flag. I can't lie. That's when they start. That's when stuff start getting scary. What you saying, Maria? A long time.
Really exists in this story. There's a lot of questions I've seen online that I think I have the ability to answer by the end of this video. Answers that will give you a genuine understanding into the mind and psychology of David Anthony Burke.
Bro, I hope they do him crazy on the block. What the heck?
Talking about killing people? In your music? No, not my son. I was like, wait, I might be onto something.
Disclaimer.
Let's start from the beginning. So, you're a New Yorker.
New Yorker, Queens, New York.
What are your parents like? Are they musicians?
Not at all. My dad is a litigator for a law firm. My mother was a teacher. She doesn't do it anymore, but she does notary now.
David Anthony Burke was born in Queens, New York, to Colleen and Dawood Burke, two Christian parents that seemingly would give him a tough and controlled upbringing.
Everything we played in the house, music-wise, was just Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, gospel music, like classical stuff, instrumentals only. Like, we didn't listen to any other music. There was no, like, Lady Gaga.
Okay, so this is the type of stuff that I can't let my child... I can't grow up my child on instrumentals and stuff because it will end up like this. So, Fez, I'm taking notes of that shit.
Like, all the popular artists everybody was listening to, we never could listen to that because my parents just wouldn't let us. It was just, like, straight classical stuff.
It was literally nothing. It was all gospel and, like, classical, Mozart, Bach, like, all that kind of stuff. Because my parents wanted me to be really smart. They never, like, talked about college or anything like that, but they always wanted me to be very intellectual, very put together, have an idea of what I'm doing, but they never like.
Okay, this is kind of hypocritical. I'm just last pause real quick, but it's funny how they said like they wanted him to be intellectual, but when it came to like the whole Celeste situation, all the evidence pointed to him. You know what I'm saying? All the evidence literally pointed, like, if you got set up, bro, whoever set him up, smart as fuck. But all the evidence is so redonkulously pointing towards him. So clearly he weren't that intellectual. Is that David? Yes, David.
Listen to music like that at all.
Trying to control what your kids listen to and the content they consume isn't necessarily harmful in and of itself. But if a kid is going to school and has no level of cultural relatability, it can cause feelings of being excluded, which in turn affects his socialization. If everyone got to access music and it became a point of discussion he couldn't involve himself in, it might have led to feelings of envy. And instead of David accepting this, he tried to find a way around it.
So then that's why he went to go talk to Matt. Oh, okay.
Did your parents put sort of a cap on what you could and couldn't listen to in the
Nah,
house?
I was sneaking
It wasn't
around.
like that.
I had this little iPod. I used to sneak. I got it with me right now too. I still got these. I used to sneak around with the iPod Touch. I used to sneak around with the iPod Touch and download things off iTunes and stuff like that.
The sneaking around his parents like this is consistent with reactance theory, proposed by Jack Brem in 1966. When perceived behavioral freedom is restricted, individuals are motivated to reclaim it. In these situations, the forbidden fruit, which for David would have been music, becomes more desirable, and the individual tries to acquire it by any means, even if it includes secrecy. Now, it's not the behavior itself that's necessarily significant, but the pattern it establishes. That authority is to be managed from concealment rather than confronted directly. This pattern would then reoccur later for his adult life. It didn't help David that his private school life in New York also consisted of bullying and teachers picking on him, so he had an uneasy time both at school and at home.
I hated New York at that point. Like,
why did you
I didn't
hate
like
it?
my school. I was at a
'Cause
private
you-
school, and they treated me so horribly, dude.
Why?
It was insane. I don't know. All the teachers had it out for me. My little brother could testify to that too. Dude, they just had it out for me all the time. I don't know what it was. I would just do nothing to nobody, and the teachers would just pick on me and bully me
This is a documentary about David, bro.
for no reason, bro. I wanted to leave that place so bad.
And he got his wish as they moved to Houston, Texas, and he found it slightly better at his new school. But he was a kid that didn't really seem to find anything that stuck. His parents tried to get him into music, but it wasn't stimulating enough for him at that time.
She put me into piano lessons when I was 7, and then I quit that after a week. She was like, okay, I'm not gonna pay for it if you don't like it. Quit that. She put me in a church choir when I was 8. Quit that. And then I was in middle school band. When I was in 7th grade, I played the flute, and I quit that.
But he never
loves Britain.
developed into a conventionally social child. He describes himself as a people watcher rather than a member of a friend group, sitting apart in cafeteria settings and constructing fictional narratives around classmates that they were unaware of.
At school, before I was homeschooled, like middle school, elementary, I would look at these kids, like at cafeteria, at lunch was like my playground, like my brain's playground. Like there's so many different kids and they're all doing something different. I would just sit there and I'm a people watcher. I would just inspect them and like write about them and stuff like that. And I kind of brought these characters to life that were inspired by my classmates. So every time I would write like a short story, I'd have these different classmates in these stories and they would never know. It's like different names and everything, but they were inspired by my classmates.
This preference to observe people and create these stories
I
was
don't
an
know that
early
David,
marker
bro.
that he had a natural tendency to see people as subjects for analysis rather than reciprocal social partners.
Okay, like, I low-key do see, like, people as, like, you know what? Let me play the video. Let's get this.
Combined with his bullying in New York, it suggests he
Hey, play the
felt
video.
inclined to exist on the edge
But
of
I don't have the same thing that
present,
he's thinking about, though.
integrated, watching but not connecting.
You don't see
He
people
says
as
he
human?
began writing.
Nah, bro. I do see people as human, but I just don't see, like, I'm not really attached to any, like, I'm not really attached to, I'm more of like an observer, and I see things as like projects. Do you know what I'm saying? Of just me learning stuff. That's it. I don't see it as like from face. I don't see stuff from face value. But I don't react like how, you know what I'm saying? Different people react to information like that differently. So people are projects. Okay, guys, all right. No, like, I meant as in like, I just find it interesting. And I'm just like, my goals in life is to learn, grow, and live. So I see everything as a project. His reasons are probably different, and hence why he had a girl in the Tesla of his car. I don't know if he did it, but bro.
Poetry in the 5th grade and pursued anime, gaming, and creative fiction from a young age.
Yeah, ever since I was young, I really just liked anime, gaming, and poetry. That's it.
Okay, like he's putting.
When I was in 5th grade.
No, he's putting a bad name. Oh no! Dragon Ball don't, bro. Dragon Ball don't teach this shit. Dragon Ball has nothing to do with this. What are we doing? JC, what do you think of David? I think he's a monster. Okay, like that's it. I feel like he's crazy madman, bro.
The powers and all that.
Tokyo Ghoul makes sense though. Tokyo Ghoul makes
I just
sense.
start writing and write my own stories about him.
But just in case his parents couldn't give him any more reason to resent them, they took him out of public school, the only place he was getting any sort of socialization, the place where he was letting his imagination run wild, and they instead placed him on an isolated homeschool curriculum.
Transitioning from public school to homeschool is tragic. The first 2 years was tragic. Like,
Tragic.
I was asking to go back to school almost every day. My brother too.
Was the decision to move from public schooling to homeschooling a difficult one?
It was, and it wasn't mine, it was my parents. So there's two different types of homeschooling in America. There's like group homeschooling, where it's parents that don't want their kids to be in public school environments, but they still want them to be in social groups. So they have you have homeschool kids that meet once a week at a specific place, and they play like
what? Yo, that's crazy.
And they do the work on paper. And then there's a second homeschooling where it's just strictly on computer. That's what I did.
They didn't let him enroll on the socialized model involving group meetings with peers, but a fully computer-based, home-based program with no structured peer contact whatsoever. From a developmental psychology standpoint, this is the most significant single environmental factor in his profile. Erikson's 8th stage model identifies adolescents, approximately 12 to 18 years old, as the critical period for identity versus role confusion. The developmental task of forming a stable, coherent sense of self through peer interaction, social experimentation, group belonging, and the feedback of others. Removing a child from that process during its peak window doesn't simply slow development, it redirects it. They don't develop normally. The main damage that came from that cutoff was socializing.
What's he sound like? You hear dudes?
Contact with him following the transition, and he was all alone.
I thought I had a lot of friends in middle school, and then after being homeschooled, nobody's hitting me up, nobody's asking me like, where am I at? Why am I not coming to school today? It made me question like, what is a real friend? And do I have any of those as well?
Bro, like dead ass though, some of them probably cared, but they were just like, yo, how are we even gonna text them for one? Two, they'll probably like, bro probably got shipped off to Nigeria, bro. I don't know how it works in America, but one time I had a friend in flipping year 7, year 8, and he went missing for like 2 years. I didn't even realize, and he came back at year 10 or 11, and then bro was fat, bro, and like no offense, like yeah, he was a big back, bro. And then he was like, I was like, where have you been, bro? I thought like, what were you doing? Where were you going? Bro said, I just came back from Nigeria, bro. He got shipped off because he was being bare naughty. So it's like, I would have thought that he got shipped off.
School to homeschooling, and nobody like hit me up on Snapchat when I was like streaking everybody. My Snap score was like 250,000, bro.
And nobody hits you back?
Nobody, dude.
What the?
That's what I'm saying. Like nobody like who?
I said no, don't beg it.
Dave? Like nobody. Like, dude, did I really have friends and stuff?
Bro, you were a watcher. You literally said you were a people watcher, so
you start to question things.
Oh,
like,
totally.
About your everyday life. It's like who's really there for you at the end?
I mean, dude, homeschooling really takes a toll on a kid. Like
isolation.
Yeah, and there's outlets like I know I made a couple friends now that were homeschooled, but they had like these groups that they would go to like bi-weekly and just to socialize. But I didn't have that. Like
David would start to feel a growing disconnect between himself and his age mates,
an
acute awareness of experiences that he was excluded from. I've gone through his TikTok, and this was clearly what hit him hardest. He was emotional seeing homeschool proposals. He has another post titled, What It Felt Like to Be a Homeschool Teen, and I won't play the audio for copyright reasons, but the lyrics go, everybody's falling in love and I'm falling behind, as he visibly shows his frustration at that fact. He missed out on having high school relationships, but had to watch everyone else get to have.
Spent a lot of time by himself, you know.
His former peers got to post relationship quotes and pictures with their partner, whilst he stayed at home, unable to do anything but watch. As the caption says, homeschool and being on social media 24/7 was not a good mix. In another post, he says his superpower is never being able to express my feelings properly because I was homeschooled and had no social life for 5 years. And on another, he says, I was homeschooled all my life. I never got to experience any school dances. When adolescents are denied normal peer socialization, connection and belonging doesn't disappear. It finds alternative channels. In David's case, that channel
we're saying it's a test, bro.
Specifically Fortnite, YouTube, Discord, TikTok.
Yeah, he was good at Fortnite.
During his homeschooled years, David describes Fortnite as his primary social environment. He engaged in squad fields, which is where you're allowed to join games with strangers if you have a headset and mic. And he allowed people to vent their personal problems to him.
Especially being homeschooled and not having a social life, right? So I'm on the game, I'm talking to all these random people, and they're talking to me about their life problems, using video games to escape the real world as much as I am, and then living my life vicariously through them and like writing songs about their lives.
Yeah. I would go on Discord and I would go on Fortnite and I would go on like squad fills and I just let people talk to me and just tell me about their lives.
Bro, hey, this guy was dead ass on flipping Fortnite, yeah, going, yeah, bro. How was your day though? How did you grow up? Really? That happened to you? Hold on. When did that happen to you? Oh shit. Okay. Like, bro, was using guys for songs, bro. Using people for songs. Oh yeah, that's crazy, bro.
Because like most of these people that play video games the same way I do, they're going to it as an escape. So I was just being an open door and an open outlet for like my peers and my friends to kind of just like.
This dude was rich and decently famous. Just live your life, you absolute idiot. Go get a Mercedes GT633 and keep it pushing. Oh my days, Elton, bro. Not everything's about cars, bro. Sometimes you need something more. I'm joking, like you need no facts. You need something more, bro. You need like substance inside of you. Like no, bro. You can't rely on external things to fix internal things. Internal things, you need to focus on them, bro. You need to solve them. You actually need to solve them before you start getting rich and stuff. Or even when you are rich, you need to solve your internal self.
Vent to me about different things in their like personal lives and stuff like that.
And I'm like 15, 14 at this time, so I don't know how to like be a therapist, right? But it's like I'm taking this information and all these different people talking to me about different like problems and situations. I'm like, wow, this is really what humans are like. Like, these are humans.
The fact he says, wow, so this is what humans are like. These are humans. Tells me that this was the only way David was understanding human psychology at that time. This is a clinically unusual developmental pathway. Normally, an adolescent's model of human behavior is built through direct, embodied, reciprocal experience, like friendship, conflict, romantic experience, loss, etc. But David built his model of human psychology through a parasocial and semi-anonymous listening role, absorbing other people's problems through a gaming headset. This produces a specific kind of social intelligence, highly observational, empathically competent on an intellectual level, but fundamentally disembodied. He understands humans like a researcher understands subjects, not as a participant understands his peers. And that's going to be significant when it relates to relational behavior. So he was chronically online, seemingly addicted to video games, but being home alone that much allowed him to stumble across much worse vices. Later, in his own Discord server, David disclosed a sustained...
I use it to desensitize myself. Live leak was bookmark, laughing my ass off. I used to be addicted to watching gore video. What the heck? I love gore. What? No, this is not good, bro. This is not good for PR. I saw a cartel execution on Reddit when I was... Oh, this can't be real.
14 years old, following the accidental exposure.
I got to the point where I don't even cringe when I see it no more. I remember laughing at one point. It got bad, man. What?
Cartel execution.
Bad for PR, bro.
Violence and injury, fully uncensored.
No, bro. As in, like, this is bad, bro. Like, if they could, if they put this in the flipping court case, like, he's already gone. There's already crippling information, but this is even more worse, bro. Real life gore,
including death and murder. And he was discovering that and watching it repeatedly at 14 years old. He describes a progression from initial shock response.
I know we've all been on Reddit and we've seen some fucked up shit, bro. I remember going on Reddit and my boy was showing me Chicago people shoot, like in America, they're just bare like shootings in America, and I'd go and watch it, yeah, and I'd be like, what the fuck is this? What the heck? And I couldn't watch it, bro. Every time I saw like them just lying on the ground, bro, I couldn't go, like, I can't get into that, bro. Like, I can't get into watching that type of stuff. I could bear it, but I'm not gonna go out my way to watch a contemplation like it's like a flipping Call of Duty Black Ops montage, bro.
To habituation.
Also on Reddit, I saw corn of 3 men and 1 horse. Okay.
Saying, it got to the point where I don't even cringe when I see it anymore. To then developing a dissociative response, claiming he started laughing at one point, but then escalated to deliberate, intentional use. I watch gore to disconnect the part of my brain that feels empathy to the wrong things, amygdala. which generates the brain's threat and disgust response to violence. Repeated exposure to graphic stimuli triggers habituation and desensitization. In simpler words, the threshold for what makes the brain want to cringe and look away rises because the stimulus is no longer threatening due to seeing it so much. What David describes in his Discord is consistent with this process in adolescents, whose prefrontal regulatory systems are still maturing and therefore less equipped to contextualize and contain the desensitizing effect. But what distinguishes David's disclosure from typical adolescent experimentation is that last part. He doesn't describe watching gore for entertainment or shock value. He describes it as an emotional engineering exercise, a deliberate attempt to modify his own empathic response. This level of intentionality about emotional desensitization in a 14-year-old is far from typical and represents a significant clinical signal. This would have been a major warning sign and red flag that David was gaining the ability to care less about human life. During that same isolated period, David developed an elaborate alter ego he called Itami, a Japanese word meaning pain.
I have this alter ego named Itami, which means pain in Japanese, and I'm heavily inspired by like anime and stuff like that.
Stop using, no, you're making us anime guys look bad, bro. Oh my days, bro, we just came out the gutter. Now everybody thinks anime is cool and now bro's gonna rub it out, bro.
But that character that's in the music videos I make now was actually an idea that I had years before music even started, when I was writing my first comic book. And it was this detective that would solve his own crimes. So he was the good guy by day, and then at night he'd kind of transform into this alter ego and then commit crimes he'd solved the morning of.
Oh, this David guy is so far. This David guy is so far. This guy, bro.
Itami isn't this artistic, creative concept he's come up with. David described it in multiple interviews as a character he intended to develop into his own mind.
Reverse Batman.
Who was explicitly him, a detective who committed murders and then investigated them himself.
Big part of that manga was an evil version of me, an agent of chaos and kind of my alter ego, and there was an evil version of myself that would kind of come out at random moments, kind of like Fight Club with Tyler Durden, and he would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as the detective. So like when I was as the detective, I'd be like solving murders that I'm committing myself.
Understand that there's a difference between normal fantasy and what David's doing. We all might fantasize here and there, maybe about obtaining a certain level of wealth or driving a certain car or whatever you guys care about. Escapist fantasy uses fictional scenarios to temporarily relieve stress and provide alternative experience. The psychological concept of fantasy elaboration, however, involves constructing increasingly detailed, immersive internal worlds in which the individual places themselves, not a character, but themselves, and which begin to function as a parallel framework for understanding identity and relationships. David explicitly inserted himself into this narrative. He is not the author of Itami. He's Itami's counterpart. They share an existence. He later described Itami as
the one that is weaving his way into my relationships and ruining them and inducing trauma and things like that.
This language suggests that the alter ego had become a psychological container for the parts of himself he wished to disown but had not eliminated.
This stuff is not looking good, bro. I can't
David
lie.
transitioned into music accidentally in late 2021 after copyright strikes on his gaming content prompted his mother to suggest he create original music.
I started making music in like December 2021. I used to be a Fortnite YouTuber, bro. Like, it's so crazy. The only reason I started making music is because my videos got copyrighted, because I was using like Scissors music, Justin Bieber music, all that. And my mom was like, yo, if you're getting copyright strike, you're not making no money, make your own song. So I was like, bro, I could probably do that.
Because of his ability, I know he's able to play and do, so I said, just make your own music. And that was that.
So I kept doing it. Kind of just became this.
That's the only W from the parents right there, bro.
My SoundCloud numbers surpassed my Fortnite videos numbers. And it was out of here, bro.
He had no prior musical ambition. What he did have, though, was years of accumulated internal material. The Itami fantasy, the observational psychology built through online listening, the poetry he had written since 5th grade, and a set of emotional themes like isolation, romantic destruction, duality, that had no other outlet. Music gave that internal world a public form. It also gave it a socially legitimate one. Dark themes that are wrapped in musical craft don't register to us listeners as warning signs. They register as artistry. The same content that might raise concern if it was in a journal or a private communication is celebrated when it has a compelling melody behind it. David's own
Wait, hold on. Let me actually think about this. In the back of my mind, you died, and I didn't even cry. No, not a single tear. I don't know, if it was still poetry, I'll still fuck with it. I'll still be like, oh, that's tough.
created when it has a compelling melody behind it. David's own statements confirm that his early music was not drawn from lived experience,
anime is
but
already
from imagination and preparation.
itself.
When I write music about heartbreak and the sad type of things, I write it not from experience because I was a really homebody. I was homeschooled. Like I didn't have much of a social outlet like that. I write it in like preparation. I feel like when you commit to love, you commit to devastation as well. I think it's a mixture of like trying to figure it out myself and then looking at other people's experiences. I mean, 'cause I've never experienced like true heartbreak either. So I write all these songs in preparation for it, so I'm not devastated, you know? So I know what to expect.
He describes writing about heartbreak in preparation, having never experienced it. He states directly, "I love over-dramatized themes of romance because it would never be like this in real life."
I love over-dramatized themes of romance because it would never be like this in real life. So it allows you to like have more room to play around.
The thematic content of his early catalogue in 2022, like Bleed Out in March, Dirty Secrets in May, Romantic Homicide in July, centers on romantic destruction, hiding dark secrets, killing a romantic partner, and feeling no remorse. Romantic Homicide's central lyric, which David explains in detail in a Genius interview, is constructed specifically around the active first person. Not just you died, but I killed you. He stresses the first person agency.
Which was in the back of my mind, but then you think that I'm gonna say you died, but I say I killed you. So it's not like the thought of her is gone by itself was something that she did, it was something that I decided to do. And I killed her in the back of my mind.
He also describes the back of my mind as the location of this act, which is precisely where he has told us that his fantasy lives. His mother's reaction to Romantic Homicide is very ironic, but also significant.
I showed it to my mother, and she was like, "That song's too violent and too sad. You're not releasing it. My son is not gonna be talking about killing people in music." And I was like, I'm gonna take that as a challenge, low key. I played it for her in the car, and she was like, "David, this song is too violent. You're talking about killing people in your music? No, not my son." And I was like, wait, I might be onto something.
She identified something real in the content. He overrode her objection anyway and released it, and that song was the one that became his commercial breakthrough. The commercial success of Romantic Homicide is a pivotal moment in the psychology trajectory. David didn't receive any social correction.
The only bad thing about this song is that it ends 10 out of 10. I want a whole album of songs like this. I don't care if people start calling this a TikTok song. This shit is hard.
For expressing violent romantic fantasy. He received validation.
Bro, so just imagine how nostalgic the song will be in 10 years from now. Oh, that did not age.
Dreams.
That did not age, right?
Interscope and multi-million-dollar career momentum.
I get the first email from the labels. I showed it to them. I'm like, all right, my mom has to hear about this now. I was like, there's no way I can like sweep this under the rug. I'm getting really famous right now. And then I meet with
Yo, W Tosh with this 16-month top. Yo, appreciate it, Tosh, appreciate it. Yo, what you saying?
And I meet on my team Mogul Vision for management that I signed on management. And then at that point, it was just time to push the button.
From a behavioral reinforcement standpoint, this is near optimal conditioning. The behavior, which was externalizing dark fantasy through art, produced the outcome most desired by someone with his developmental history, which was
I'm good.
recognition, status, and the experience of being known without truly being seen. Because not only did he blow up in music, but that coincided with social media fame, like TikTok, where he got tons of engagement. But looking back on that, those fans were engaging with someone who wasn't even their true self, and who never took the mask off.
I got me as the artist, David, D4VD, Itami, which is the antagonist. He wears the blindfold. My gaming character is coming soon. He is like the one that's super tech savvy and stuff like that. And then my social media persona, which is also being built out as we speak. And that's the 4.
He constructed an entire identity architecture around himself with those 4 defined personas. David the artist, Itami the antagonist, a gaming persona.
By the way, I changed the text. Is it good now? I'll check it after this.
And a social media persona. None of which were David Anthony Burke. The actual self was not among them. What researchers describe as identity diffusion, where the boundary between constructed persona and authentic self becomes genuinely unclear, appears to be happening here. The masks were not overlaid on a stable self, they may have become the primary mode of self-experience. So David from early on learned how to switch between characters. In private, he could be this antisocial kid with dark fantasies. In interviews, he could sound smart and sophisticated. And on TikTok, he could do his best to be relatable and goofy to his audience. That ability to switch became something that we now potentially know might have helped him deal with the consequences of his future actions.
Oh, wait, hold on. This guy might be cooking.
According to prosecution documents, David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez first made contact online in January 2022.
Wait, when she was 11? No! Nah, bro. When she was 11. Oh, get him out of here, man. Get him out of here, man.
11 years old, and he was 16. This reportedly happened on Fortnite, which would be consistent with how David got his social interaction when he was homeschooled. The prosecution documents confirm a physical relationship began in November 2023 when Celeste was 13 and David was 18. So they knew each other online for almost 2 years before ever becoming intimate. This is purely my opinion based on available context and evidence, but I don't believe David sought out Celeste in a predatory form, looking for a minor specifically because that's what physically attracted him. The fact he was only 16 at the time and was being homeschooled makes it completely plausible that the relationship began as some kind of intense online companionship, where he was just happy to talk to someone, with age not being one of his concerns. I believe they started off as friends who confided in each other, made jokes, and wasn't started off in any inappropriate nature.
What's saying, Joshy?
Is the question. The evidence that the prosecution...
I pray none of my favorite rappers doesn't become any of these. Nah. Depends. As long as your rapper is an NBA Youngboy, bro.
Bringing forward documents a pattern that David was grooming Celeste in stages that got gradually more intense. The first thing he did was make her feel special. He released a romantic homicide music video on Celeste's birthday. He then recorded a song titled Celeste in the
7th of September,
expressing deep personal obsession, and he continually maintained her presence in his Discord server. The song Celeste references the girl with my name tattooed.
Oh no!
A detail that subsequently...
Oh no! Hold on. Alright, cool. Now I saw that. I got scared for a quick second. To be fair, 50 Cent didn't kids and touch the gym and weights too much, or touch the blick to shoot his ops, bro.
Materialized in reality when Celeste had his name tattooed on her finger and shared it in the Discord server in July 2024. He also never publicly posted her on social media, but would post pictures where she's present but not identifiable. Posts referencing having a girlfriend to show his fans he was in a relationship, which gave his romantic music credibility. Another thing he did was use financial control. Prosecution documents confirm that after Celeste's parents removed her phone from her in February 2024, David drove to Lake Elsinore where she lives and paid a classmate $1,000 to provide Celeste with a new phone he had purchased so that they could maintain contact. This was done after law enforcement had directly informed him that she was a 13-year-old runaway. Despite her parents and law enforcement trying to stop him from connecting with her, he chose to go around them anyway. He then
hungry
and support system. There's debate on whether Celeste had the best home life in the first place, but David definitely capitalized on that and took advantage of her vulnerability. Throughout 2024, the prosecution documents confirm that Celeste spent significant time at David's Hollywood Hills residence, accompanied him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas, and was repeatedly reported missing by her family. This pattern of running away is consistent with successful grooming. The victim's primary attachment has been displaced towards the perpetrator. David had become the new safe place in her eyes, he said to think about in hindsight. Another thing David desired was surveillance and control. It could be for humor purposes, so take it as context.
No, that's crazy manipulation. I can't even lie. That's Diddy level, bro.
Rather than fact. But in January 2024, after they'd started a physical relationship, he posted a TikTok with the text on the screen implying a partner telling him that she will swallow an AirTag so he gets...
Nah, this is W edit him.
It seems playful on the surface, but with the context we have, he's describing a desire for a constant location surveillance over a minor. On January 11th, 2024, David did a Twitch stream, but he had Celeste in full view of his audience, right there in plain sight.
Like, bro. Like, he, at his age, 20, 18, I don't know, 19, however old he is, bro, he should know about the age of consent and things of that nature. Bro's doing it in front of everyone, bro. Do you know what I'm saying?
He was wearing a hoodie and glasses.
Why didn't no one clip this up?
Suggestions at her age, and they seem to be doing a cooking stream.
Seasoning? It's already seasoned, but it's Alfredo.
I'm yet to find the full stream, but something gets said beforehand, and the comments start saying things like, "Pray for his career, chat. You're done for, bro. Nah, you going on the Epstein list. There's no escaping this, bro. Caught you in 4K. All messages that allude to the chat realizing that David is allegedly.
Bro, they need to find that sleazy guy, bro. That sleazy guy was on job. Bro said to, hey, caught you in 4K, you done, bro. I think the last one was sleazy too.
Allude to the chat realizing that David is allegedly.
Nah, you don't
David
care,
reads
bro.
these comments out aloud and questions Celeste. Are we done? To which Celeste says, We need to delete this.
Pray for his career chat. Are we done? Are we
We need to delete it.
Maz, can we delete all VODs? And then as soon as
So she was aware of it too. This is a sticky situation.
let's delete the stream too. Can we delete anything? You done for, bro? Y'all are not done? Now you going to Epstein? Yo,
it's going more.
You see the instant panic in David because he's tried to keep this relationship a secret, and this was the closest he'd gotten to being exposed. The chat continues with David and Celeste Island trip and David Epstein flight list. But something else gets said, and David puts his hand firmly on Celeste's shoulder and says, "I media trained you." To which she replies, "No, you didn't."
Media
I personally don't.
Yo, I media trained you.
No, you didn't.
He says that's controversial, and she questions him with something that almost exposed his secret to the world.
It's controversial of kids.
Wait. It's controversial of RAPIN. What?
Really good.
Okay,
It's been a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Mwah. Oh my. Delete everything. Delete everything. Everything goes.
She seemingly regrets saying it straight away, and David ends the stream. Of course, I have to preface that streaming clips get taken out of context all the time. What we don't know is what...
Okay. I don't know what context can validate what was said here, okay?
was actually said beforehand, and the chat could have been referencing something completely different. But what we do know is that David was making attempts to media train Celeste, in his own words. Due to him understanding what he was doing was wrong, this is an attempt at power control, because by giving her instructions on how to act, she's molded to become more obedient. It's crazy that this Twitch stream is almost a mirror of what the prosecution are alleging David did to Celeste over a year later. When he was on the verge of getting exposed, he tells his mods to delete everything, to physically discard of the evidence so that no one can find out the truth. He did what he needed to maintain control over the narrative, and panics when there's a risk of the mask slipping. Prosecution documents state that Celeste and David broke up in November 2024, though text messages confirm a continued contact through to at least March 2025. The documented text exchanges describe Celeste growing distress at the nature of their relationship. She messaged, according to prosecution filings, "All we do is have sex and just hang out, man."
What?
I know that for myself. If you notice, the prosecution frames this as evidence of David's manipulation. This is because of the context that is supposedly surrounding this message. The prosecution's argument is that David had deliberately led her to believe that they had some sort of future together, that she was his girlfriend, his partner, someone he was building something with, specifically in order to maintain physical access to her and her silence. She was emotionally invested in a future I don't think he actually planned to give her. Now, before we proceed, I have to reiterate, because I know how soft the YouTube guidelines are when it comes to active cases and demonetization, but David is only alleged to have murdered Celeste Rivas Hernandez and has pleaded not guilty. So take what I say next as opinion, as rumors, as theory, but not fact, because his behavior over 2025, if not guilty of the murder, just looks like normal behavior. But that's also the problem if he is guilty, because only a psychopath could do what's been done to Celeste and go about life as well.
Like nothing happened.
22nd, 2025, prosecution documents describe a lengthy argument conducted over text messages. Celeste had become aware of David's relationships with other women. Although they supposedly weren't in a relationship anymore, this triggered Celeste, and she threatened to expose their relationship publicly and destroy his music career. His debut studio album, Withered, was scheduled for release April 25th, 2025, so 3 days later. On top of that, he had a multi-million-dollar career, active endorsements, and tour booked. The prosecution alleges that at approximately 8:40 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, David ordered an Uber to transport Celeste from her Lake Elsinore home to his Hollywood Hills residence. She arrived at approximately just after 10 p.m. The prosecution alleges that shortly after her arrival, David stabbed her multiple times and stood by while she bled out, making no attempt to call emergency services. At approximately 11:30 p.m., he drove north on the 101 freeway to Santa Barbara County, texting and calling Celeste's phone as he drove, a pattern the prosecution characterizes as a deliberate attempt at a cover story.
What? Texting and calling Celeste's phone. So he was pretending that he was calling Celeste's phone. Like, what does that do?
Home early on April 24th, went to a radio interview for the album, and attended the album release party later that evening. The prosecution then documents evidence of David's poor attempt at concealing the crime and dismembering her body, which he then left in the front trunk of his Tesla.
Burke placed her body in the inflatable pool he'd ordered to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor and used a chainsaw to cut off her limbs.
Surveillance footage confirms David drove.
Do you know like how much commitment you need to have to use a chainsaw to cut someone's body bit by bit? Like, do you know how evil like you have to be to like do that? Do you know what I'm saying? That's American Psycho level shit, bro. You have to not see her as a human being to literally do that. Like the body's there and you're there, just little bit. Nah, bro, that's crazy.
Tesla for the last time on July 29th, 2025, before parking it on Bluebird Avenue in Hollywood Hills and departing for his concert tour. And this is the alleged story we have so far on how David potentially murdered Celeste and then continued with life like nothing happened.
Oh, they might say it's psychosis, bro.
The following analysis I'll give
bro, he's not Batman, he's
the evidence
man.
presented by the prosecution is factual and proven, and is just my opinion. But the first thing that I believe to be true is that David demonstrates a dark triad personality. The dark triad is a mix of 3 personality constructs: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, identified in psychological literature as co-occurring and collectively associated with manipulative, exploitative, and callous interpersonal behavior. And I believe all 3 appear relevant to David's documented behavioral profile. Narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is characterized by grandiosity, a persistent need for admiration, entitlement, and a lack of genuine empathy. Subclinical narcissistic traits, which don't meet the full diagnostic threshold but are clinically meaningful, are observable in David's behavior across multiple domains. The construction of its own identity architecture, the use of a child as a participant in his artistic and fantasy world, the apparent expectation that normal rules, including the laws, didn't apply to him, and the documented use of financial resources to purchase.
Bro, it was also a thing where like all the girls that he was using in his music videos look like Celeste, bro. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. This guy is cooked off the cooked. This guy's not even cooked. This guy is burnt pizza in the oven.
Compliance from multiple parties, like Celeste's classmates and potentially others, rather than just accepting social or legal constraints. He continued pursuit of Celeste after direct law enforcement contact, despite being explicitly told that she was a 13-year-old runaway, which just demonstrates how important he thought he was. Narcissistic individuals frequently exhibit a belief that ordinary legal and social constraints are obstacles that apply to others, but not them. Machiavellianism refers to a strategic, manipulative orientation towards interpersonal relationships. In simpler terms, using others as instruments towards personal goals, maintaining multiple social presentations simultaneously, and planning several steps ahead in your devious plans. David's law across the 2022 to 2025 period is consistent with this profile. The staged disclosure of his relationship that was sufficient to lend his music credibility, but not enough to expose it, the financial management of witnesses, the claimed media training of a minor to manage his public perception, and the fake name he used on the Amazon purchases when trying to cover his murder trail. Psychopathy is characterized by reduced fear response, diminished empathy, shallow affect, and the capacity to engage in harmful behavior without the guilt and anxiety that normally regulates such behavior in normal individuals. What's actually happening in the brain is reduced amygdala reactivity, meaning the internal alarm system that makes violence psychologically hard to deal with is significantly reduced. David's deliberate desensitization program beginning at 14, his awareness of this process, saying, "I watch God to desensitize the part of my brain that feels empathy to the wrong things."
Oh my days, he's 14 writing this, bro. He was cooked from the spawn. GC, can you refresh your YouTube homepage like 10 times and see what got recommended? I got crazy shit recommended today. No, I'm finishing this video.
And his ability, if the allegations are accurate, to attend a radio interview and album release party within hours of the alleged murder are all consistent with elevated psychopathic traits. The prosecution's timeline describes someone who moved through the alleged crime and its immediate aftermath in a goal-directed, organized manner without visible emotional disruption to his public functioning. He saw the murder and the cleanup as a task to get out the way, rather than a major disturbance to his life. It's important to note that psychopathy exists on a continuum. High psychopathic traits do not predict violence on their own. They represent a reduction in the internal constraints that make violence improbable for most people. You can definitely have psychopathic traits and go through life without killing anyone. But if you had to, or if you believed you had to, it wouldn't be hard for you to mentally process. The best way I see fit to analyzing the rest of his psychology is by answering some common questions surrounding the case. The first is, was David born with psychopathic traits, or did the environment shape him like this? The evidence doesn't support a simple nature or nurture answer, and the research literature on psychopathy doesn't even need one. Studies on antisocial personality disorder, which is the more official diagnosis with traits similar to psychopathy, have found that genetic predisposition is a real factor, but it's not determinative, meaning genes do play some part, but it needs more than that. What the developmental history suggests is that David likely had some dispositional features like his elevated sensation seeking, a reduced fear response, a natural tendency towards social observation over social participation.
He wasn't raised good, bro. Like, his parents didn't, how do I say it? Like, if your child is saying something, you kind of have to listen. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm like, I want to go back to school. Like, I don't like this. Like, you're not, like, you have to like listen to them, bro. Especially with stuff like that. Because then if you grew up around people, there would have been a less chance of this happening.
That interacted with a profoundly adverse developmental environment. The isolation he experienced in homeschooling removed the social components that normally regulate and redirect dark impulses in adolescence, such as peer feedback, mentorship, romantic experience within age-appropriate contexts, and the reality testing that comes from genuine reciprocal relationships. Basically, when you're in school and you're weird, people are going to tell you you're weird and they're not going to be friends with you, and that's going to cause you to not be weird. The gore consumption, the fantasy elaboration, and the emotional desensitization.
Yeah, he would have got bullied for this, bro. Like, somebody would be like, yo, shut the fuck up, what's wrong with you, kid? Put his head on a locker, bro. Then he would be like, oh, that's something I shouldn't be doing.
Program didn't occur despite his isolation.
It
occurred, most likely, because of it. Any genetic psychopathy predisposition might have stayed more muted in a more socially connected environment, but David was given 5 years.
This is why some people need to get bullied. Like, it's good for character development.
The next question is, if many children experience homeschooling, many children watch gore, and many children watch anime, and they don't become violent, then why was David different? The answer is not any single factor, but the specific combination and timing of factors, and the absence of mitigating ones.
Bro, bullying does help, bro. Bullying helps society, bro. I got jumped. I don't know what that taught me, JC. No, not like that. No bullying like that. Like, you're getting jumped or fight back. You know what I'm saying? But hey, like, teach you to snitch. Yeah, like snitch. But I feel like there is something that you can learn from bullying, like getting bullied.
3 elements distinguish David's profile from the general population of adolescents who share some of his experiences. First, the duration and completeness of his social isolation was extreme. Not partial homeschooling with peer contact, but 5 years of near total isolation during the precise developmental window where identity and empathy are formed through reciprocal relationship. Fair enough if they let him go to some sports clubs and he got to meet people weekly, but he was completely alone. Second, his response to that isolation was not passive, but active, as he built an increasingly elaborate internal fantasy world.
Bro, where was his parents? Like, were they reading the comics and stuff? Because if I read one of my kids' comics and it was like, my auto ego, what's like, bro, I would have to like get him signed up to therapy.
In which violent romantic narratives were central, and he deliberately used that period to pursue desensitization by watching gore videos. Third, and perhaps most critically, nothing corrected the trajectory. There were no peer relationships to provide reality feedback.
Because nobody knew him like that.
Mentors who intervened. When his dark material reached the public, it was celebrated. When law enforcement contacted him directly about a 13-year-old runaway, he found a way around their intervention. The system of natural corrections that normally checks and redirects deviant development failed at every point. Another question is, with his fantasies and music content, did David always have a lust for murder, or did circumstance just cause him to kill in that moment? Neither characterization is fully accurate. Despite how wild our minds like to run with conspiracy, evidence doesn't support a long-term conscious plan to murder Celeste. There's no indication he groomed her with killing in mind from the outset. What the evidence does support is a sustained internal world in which
please tell me this animation was fan-made or something.
Relationships and fatal violence were thematically intertwined, in which he had deliberately engineered his own emotional desensitization to that violence, and in which he had repeatedly rehearsed through his music videos, through lyrics, fantasy, and alter ego construction, the psychological experience of killing a partner and feeling nothing. Whether or not he consciously intended to kill Celeste, he had spent years building the psychological infrastructure that made it executable. The prosecution's alleged motive that he was silencing a threat to his career is entirely plausible as a proximate trigger, but the proximate trigger ignited something that had been laid down over a long period of time. A person without that psychological infrastructure confronted with the same threat, would not have had the same response. They might have offered to talk about things, maybe to pay her off, or something, but not murder. A very common question is, why did he leave the body in his Tesla and then just go on tour?
Facts!
Narcissistic overconfidence or something else? There's the theory that he wanted the body to be found so that everyone could appreciate the art of his crime, and whilst psychologically intriguing, it doesn't hold up well against the broader evidence. The prosecution documents a person who used a false name to purchase disposable equipment, drove to Santa Barbara County to destroy evidence the night of the alleged murder, made deliberate false statements to law enforcement, and continued attempting to incinerate evidence months later, as he bought a burn cage in July that he didn't end up using. This is not the behavior of someone wanting the body to be discovered. It's the behavior of someone.
Bro, Amazon, bro. They're gonna look for his Amazon chainsaw, flipping cage, flipping plastic bags. Like, what the fuck?
Who believed he was managing the situation competently. The most clinically consistent explanation is indeed narcissistic overconfidence, a well-documented feature of individuals who combine high narcissistic and psychopathic traits. The belief isn't simply I am above the law in an abstract sense. It's the belief that the individual's intelligence, status, and resources are sufficient to manage any problem. Leaving the car on the street rather than disposing of it properly is a catastrophic risk assessment failure, but it's consistent with the same cognitive pattern that led him to go to his radio interview the morning after the alleged murder. The operational logic appears to have been, the car is not at my address, it's a few hundred feet away.
Bro did this and just went to an interview just going, yeah, like, this is why I love making music. Like, music is great, it's an expression of myself. Like, what? Just brushed it off.
I'm about to leave on tour, and this is manageable. He definitely thought that Celeste running away all the time was going to play to his advantage, as no one would be looking for her. But when it comes to dead bodies decomposing, you don't look for that smell. The smell finds you. The question most fascinating to me, especially when watching through all of his TikTok videos following the proposed date of the alleged murder, is what allowed him to continue functioning normally after the fact. Several interacting psychological mechanisms are relevant here. The first is the reduced guilt and anxiety response associated with elevated psychopathic traits. The internal system that makes violent acts psychologically disabling for most people was, in David's case, already significantly reduced through years of deliberate desensitization. The second is compartmentalization, a defense mechanism in which an individual maintains separate psychological areas that don't interact, allowing normal social functioning to continue in one area while extreme events are contained in another. The third is the role of his persona architecture. David had spent years living between constructed.
Bro, I wonder how he felt when he was like alone in the dark, bro. Because you know at a certain point nobody's around, and like I wonder what he was like. Like, was he just laying down? He's like, I can't believe I did that. Or something like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I can't lie. Even after small bad things like a cheat meal, I feel really guilty for. Nah, bro, same for like takeaway. Like, I feel very guilty eating takeaway nowadays that I'd rather just eat at home. Like, yesterday I was with my friends and guys went to flipping Nando's and I didn't eat anything. Then they went to the bar and I didn't drink anything. I just drank water because like I don't like doing that stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just pretended I was drunk with the water. But yeah, like I realized that after doing those things in social gatherings, when I'm by myself, I feel guilty. I feel like, why did I do that? I didn't want to do that. I would never go out of my way to do that. So why am I doing it? Because other people are around me. Like, no, just no. So, but then that day, going back home, I was so happy with myself because I maintained my boundaries.
Identities, none of which were his actual self. Switching to David the artist for a radio interview was not a performance grafted onto a traumatized person. It was, by that point, his default public mode of existence. He was the psychopathic and cold version of himself that night.
Bro, this picture is just terrible, bro. I can't even lie.
And switched his persona to David the artist by the following morning. Finally, if the prosecution's characterization of the alleged murder as an act to silence Celeste is accurate, then there was no emotional conflict to suppress. The act achieved its objective. The threat was eliminated. For someone with the psychological profile described in this video, David saw this more as completing a task rather than being horrified at what he'd done.
His face blowing,
So
yeah, his face very blowing.
And that's why there were no signs, at least publicly, of breakdown or panic. Now, the final two are significantly important to many of you watching. Firstly, was David an actual pedo that would have pursued other underage girls, or was Celeste
apparently he did
to timing? The evidence doesn't actually support primary paedophilic orientation as the dominant motivation, as I addressed earlier. However, the pattern of seeking a relationship with someone significantly younger, from an unstable home, and therefore highly susceptible to the power dynamic he preferred, is unlikely to be entirely incidental. The specific age of Celeste, 11 at first contact, 13 at the alleged start of the physical relationship, may reflect opportunity and controllability rather than exclusive attraction to that age group. Whether he would have sought out other minors depends significantly on whether the control and power dynamic, rather than the age itself, was the primary draw. The evidence leans towards him just preferring the control aspect, which suggests that his targets might have included adult women in vulnerable circumstances just as much as minors specifically. In simple terms, I don't believe he cares if it's an adult or a minor, just so as long as he can control them. And the final question, if not caught for this alleged murder, would David have killed again? On the available evidence, a second murder was not inevitable, but the risk profile wasn't low. The alleged murder, if accurately characterized by the prosecution, was carried out to eliminate a specific threat to a specific goal, which was protecting his career. This is different from the profile of a serial killer driven by compulsion or escalating fantasy fulfillment, like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and the BTK killer.
He defo preyed and looked on young girls with family issues and wanted to help them and then manipulate them. He wanted to solve, like, bro said, real Orochimaru shit. Bro, like, he wanted to be the problem solver.
However, the post-alleged murder behavior described in prosecution documents, the methodical dismemberment, the ongoing attempts to destroy evidence, the continued public functioning, is consistent with someone who didn't experience sufficient psychological cost from the act to be deterred from repeating it under similar circumstances. If the career threat had risen again with another person in a position to expose damaging information, the psychological barriers to a similar response would have been lower the second time, not higher. Basically, if the same situation repeated itself with another girl like Celeste, David would just say, "It worked the first time, so I'll do it again." I don't believe he'd go around his life trying to find people to murder. So, how do we summarize? David Anthony Burke's trajectory is not the product of a single cause, and it doesn't follow the profile
This guy did his
of someone
research.
who's going to commit a violent crime. It follows the profile of someone whose dispositional characteristics were given an extreme developmental environment in which those characteristics were amplified, reinforced, and never corrected. The homeschooling decision at 13 was the rupture, not because it was inherently abusive, because it removed the entire social architecture within which deviant development is normally detected and corrected, and replaced it with 5 years of unstructured internet access and internal elaboration. The resulting internal world, saturated with violent romantic fantasy, deliberately desensitized emotions, and a constructed alter ego who committed murders, was then given a commercial platform that celebrated rather than challenged it. The relationship with Celeste Rivas Hernandez was built on the structural conditions his isolation had created, an online social infrastructure that gave him access to vulnerable people, a power dynamic he had never experienced in any other relationship.
Yo, why keep showing this picture?
That had always positioned a romantic partner as someone he would end up killing. What the prosecution alleges is that when that relationship produced a threat to his survival, both professionally and financially, the psychological infrastructure necessary to respond violently was formed, and the psychological barriers that would have made most people unable to act on that response weren't. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was 14 years old. She was reported missing by her family multiple times. She had reached out to the one adult who was supposed to care for her, and was told that she was wanted, loved, and seen, or at least made to feel that way at one point in their relationship.
Why is she running away though? What's happening at home?
Who told her those things, ordered the Uber that brought her to his door, and stood by as she bled out on the floor of his Hollywood Hills home. The warning signs were there, in his music, in his Discord, in his fantasy constructs, in his own words, in interviews, given freely to journalists who heard them as art. The question this case raises, for parents, for platforms, for the music industry, and for the audiences who stream artists without reading what they're actually saying, is not why nobody saw it. It's why, when it was visible, it was so easy to look away.
That's true.
The case is ongoing, and I plan to cover any major updates as well as documenting my own theories over on Patreon. So if you would like that alongside uncensored content from my other videos, then the link is in the description. Rest in peace, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. I've been Jay Wisdom, and until next time.
Oh yeah, man. R.I.P. Celeste, man. This was a good video though. But like, he was right. Like, a lot of people, yeah. Like, it's like if you go into a room and you think you're a short person, right? And you think everybody's gonna laugh at you because you're short. But then, if like somebody tries to violate you about you being short, you go, "Yes, I am. and automatically the energy of the room will shift. But if you try to hide it or try to pretend that deflect or try to pretend that it's not an issue, but obviously it's not an issue, but try to make it like an issue through saying that it's not an issue, people will make it a big deal. People will make it a big deal. So when stuff is very obvious and in their face, they're just gonna accept it for what, like this. They're not gonna look too into it because they're like, wow, he's parading it. So clearly he has nothing to hide. It has interpretations for him to not be a pred, but it doesn't mean that's true, directly true. Not directly true. This is a W video. Me on about Juice WRLD.